Welcome to the No Mom is an Island podcast. As moms, we often long for moments of being alone, but the truth is sometimes we feel downright lonely. The intention of this podcast is to show you that you aren't alone, that we all experience similar things along this mothering journey. If you enjoy this podcast, please stay tuned after the interview to hear of 3 easy ways you can help this podcast continue. Well, multitasking masters, whatever you are doing while you listen to this podcast, we hope you enjoy hearing the story of another mom. Today we welcome Jenna. Good morning, Jenna. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. So why don't you tell us about your family?
Well, we have 5 children. My oldest is Zachary David. He's 20 years old. And I'll go back and tell you about each one of them, but I'm just going to go through all of them real quick. Then I have Matthew Ian. He's 14. Ashley Elizabeth. She's 13. And Joshua William Henry, he's 11, and Carissa Lee, she's 8.
Okay.
So I have quite the span of kids.
Yes.
Yeah. Zachary, my oldest, he is mildly autistic, and he has Landau-Kleffner syndrome. For those people that don't know what that is, it's an early onset disease. It usually affects boys between the ages of 3 and 8. And he was diagnosed with that when he was 3 years old. And we kind of, knew something wasn't quite right when he was little, because he stopped talking and he started kind of reverting back to sound and grunting and that kind of thing. So we knew something wasn't quite right. At first, we thought he was deaf, and because he wasn't responding to his name anymore. And basically, what Landau-Kleffner syndrome is, it's kind of like people that have had a stroke. And they forget sounds and language, and so it's a disease that affects the part of their brain that controls their speech. And so basically, he had to relearn how to talk and all of that. So he's been through a lot of therapies, but it's been quite the journey and adventure of learning how to raise him and help him overcome all the things and the obstacles that he's had to face in his life. But he has come a long, long ways, and he's now graduated just last week, and so we're so proud of him.
Yeah,
it's been quite a journey with him. But so that's my oldest, and Matthew, my 14-year-old, he's all boy, and he loves every kind of sport there is. He's currently involved in Taekwondo and getting ready for his very first tournament coming up in July. And he loves basketball and just anything he can do outside. He's very, very sports-minded and very intelligent young man. So we're very proud of him as well. And Ashley, she's my oldest girl. She's 13, like I said, and she loves everything Korean or from Japan. She has an interest in those 2 cultures, and she's been trying to teach herself how to speak Korean and write their language. And any kind of pictures that she draws usually involve things from that culture. So she's very interested. I don't know what God has planned for her. Maybe she'll be a missionary to those people. I don't know, but that's really her interest right now. And she's kind of done a little metamorphosis now that she's a teenager. It's been quite interesting to watch. Outgoing, spunky little girl to this very reserved, thoughtful person. It's been a little adjustment for me as her mom to let her, develop into the young woman that she's becoming. The next is Joshua. He is my 11-year-old, and he is just my sweetheart. He's kind of my little Romeo, I call him, because he's so, tender and loves to not only be sweet to me, but to other children. If we're at church and he's involved in the nursery or something like that, he's the one that goes over and comforts all the babies. And, he just has a big heart for other kids and people. So he's very sensitive and very kind, but he's, out of all my kids, he's probably the one that's the most challenging, interestingly enough, because he's so aware of things that are going on around him, and it's hard to know, just what's going on, I guess, in his heart, because he's so intense with his feelings and that sort of thing. But everywhere we've gone since he was a baby, he's got the longest eyelashes you would not believe.
Oh.
And so we've had people comment on his eyelashes since he was in the stroller. Like I'd be 2 aisles away in the grocery store, and there'd be women over whispering, and then they'd come walking by and be like, "Oh, his eyelashes are so long." So he's heard that all his life. And so it doesn't affect him anymore, but it's so funny. I said, someday that's going to serve you well in the future. So. And then the baby girl, Carissa, she is 8 years old. She just turned 8. And Ben calls her my mini-me. So she is she's very outgoing, and she loves to dance and loves to play. And she is just kind of the life of our family and keeps us all on our toes and, doing stuff. And there's never a moment she doesn't want to do something with somebody. So she's very social, and she's just a joy to be around. But that's kind of the synopsis of all of my kids there.
Okay. So what has been your perspective on mothering?
Well, my perspective is that they're all gifts from God, and that he's uniquely entrusted each one of them to me, as their mom. Sometimes I feel inadequate, and other times I feel like, okay, I can do this, and God's obviously given me the experiences in my life so that I can help them. But I feel like it's really my unique ability, I guess, to teach them, to love them, to guide them, that God has, given each one of them to me and not to somebody else.
Right.
And it's my ministry, to raise them to be God-fearing people and help them grow up into be adults that are independent, that are brave, and they're willing to love others and love God as best they can. And that's my hope and prayer, that, ultimately, if I teach them nothing else, it's to love others and to love God with all their heart.
Right. So that blends into, but what would you have as your distinction for what is your philosophy of mothering?
Well, my philosophy, I've kind of taught my kids that there are really only 2 choices in life, and that's pleasing yourself or pleasing God. And I tell them that all the time, that those are your 2 choices. And so, teaching them basically, in Scripture, where it talks about the golden rule, doesn't call it that, but basically, how we treat others, we need to treat them how we want them to treat us. And so that's kind of my philosophy in raising them is, you get 2 choices all the time. It's pleasing yourself in the moment, or you can please God and think about the long-term consequences of decisions that you make. But ultimately, I also teach them that the Bible is the foundation for all of their decisions. So if they run into a situation where they don't know what to do and they're not sure how they should handle something, it's always to turn them back to the Word of God, because I know that they can find the answers that they need for whatever they're facing.
Right. Yeah, very true. Now, I know at some point you were homeschooling. Are you still, or are all your children in traditional school now?
Right now, at the moment, we've kind of had a split year. At the beginning of the year, they were in a Christian school, and I was teaching, but I came across some things that I encountered there that I had to remove them from the school and start homeschooling them again. So we're currently homeschooling, but we've just discovered there's another school in our area that's similar to the one that they were at. And so I went and interviewed with them just yesterday. And so I'm praying about that and considering whether God would have us send them there.
Okay.
So at the moment, we're homeschooling.
Okay.
So.
All right. So in line with that, or maybe something developmental, what has been your favorite thing to teach your children or watch them learn?
Well, my favorite thing to teach them is, basically how to, care for other people and to try to see opportunities to do that. And so any opportunity that I can, have as a mom to help them be a place where we can step in and help somebody out or do something anonymously so they don't know and that kind of thing. That's my favorite thing to teach them, is to do things like that.
Okay.
And I love watching them master skills that they've been struggling with. I think that's my favorite thing is that they're trying so hard to do something and encouraging them, helping them to either, get better at it or to learn more about it, and then seeing them master that or, overcome it is really a joy to me to watch them do that.
Yeah, definitely. On the other side, then, what has been your least favorite thing to teach them or watch them learn?
Well, my least favorite is probably when I'm teaching them their hardest subject in school.
Yes.
Only because they're struggling and they're really, really, pushing back and they don't want to do it and that kind of stuff. So that's hard for me because I love teaching.
Yes.
But when I, encounter something that they really have a hard time with, I try to come up with other ways of showing them stuff or teaching them or whatever. And sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. But it's really hard for me to see that when they're struggling.
Right.
And then also what's really hard is if my kids, if they do something where they end up being the one that is in a situation where they're, kind of being the bully, and then that's hard for me because as my heart as a mom, I want them to be kind and loving to, other people and even as siblings. And so when I see them being harsh with each other, that's really difficult. And so to take the moment, at that time and try to help them through that. It's difficult. I know I need to do it, but it's really hard. It's hard on my heart. I don't know how to explain it, but and then just a practical one would be teaching them how to clean.
Oh, yes.
That's my least favorite thing because I have a standard of cleaning, and so I say, okay, this is your job to do, and I try to let them do it. I mean, I teach them initially. But then they go and do it, and if it's not perfect, I try to remember, okay, they're not quite there yet. Let them praise them for what they did do, but
yeah, that is hard.
I really want to be like, no, okay, you need to get down on your hands and knees and do this, that, the other thing. But yeah,
yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a hard one because you know that they should learn how to do it, and sometimes you're like, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah, exactly, right.
All right. What has been a high moment in parenting for you? Maybe a moment or a story when you thought to yourself, I can do this.
I was really contemplating some things, and the one that came to mind for me was we had put Zachary, my oldest, into public school for 9th grade. And we always thought, well, we'll homeschool the kids up till, high school, and then we'll give them the opportunity to go to high school because a lot of high schools have, a lot of activities and extracurricular things that we couldn't offer them at home. So we thought, we'll let them do that. We felt they were capable. So we did. We put them in high school, and not long into that school year, he started coming home and saying some things, and I would ask questions. But in particular, one class was his math class, and he relayed something to me one day when he got in the car. He said, Mom, the teacher asked me to come up to the front of the class, and she opened up her grade book, and she said, Zach, I want you to look at all these grades. And she said, there's only 2 people that have the A's, and there's 1 C, and the rest have F's. And so she didn't tell him, who had what other than his own, but she said, do you know who has the A in my class? And he's like, no. She's like, you're one of the kids that has an A in my class for math. And she's like, do you know why, you have an A versus everybody else? And he's like, well, because my mom homeschooled me, and so I know how to do the math. And so I thought, wow, there was a moment of just, complete, and I was just so thankful that I had an impact, and it had helped. And so when I was always doubting myself with homeschooling, like, am I doing enough? Are they learning? Are they getting it? And then to have that confirmation, that moment, that had to be probably one of the most high moments for me, especially going through all the things I've gone through with him and trying to help him overcome things. And so in that moment, it was just so special. So, yeah.
That is really special. All right. Well, on the other side of that is the low moment, a moment where you after the fact and jokingly speaking, feel like, oh, my word, my kids are going to need counseling. So what would be a low moment that comes to mind for you?
Oh, gosh. Well, as far as a very specific thing, I can't really think of anything that's, there's just so many moments where I feel like
I know
I've had low moments. But I think the one that I would characterize as probably the lowest for me is when I'm going through things in my own personal life, perhaps with my husband and that kind of thing, if we're struggling and things are really hard. And then there's been days where I've just been so stressed out and so worn out that any little thing that my kids would be doing, and then I would turn around and be so harsh and yell at them and that kind of thing. And for nothing really, significant at all, just something small. But because I was so drained and so low on anything that I could give, that I ended up, being a bully myself. Really, I guess that's. And so that had to be the lowest moment. And those moments like that is when I'm so stressed out and I take it out on my kids. And I feel like that's just awful. And of course, they forgive me. And they're so in that moment, they see my weakness and they come up and they hug me. And so, of course, that just makes me, break down and cry.
Right.
And that terrible moment that I've reacted towards them, they show kindness and love, and that helps me. But that has to be the lowest for me.
Yeah. It's important, though, as moms, when we do make those mistakes and our weaknesses do show. I mean, our children are going to see those weaknesses, whether we acknowledge them and repent of them or not, they're going to see them. And when we take the time to acknowledge them and even to say that we're sorry to our children in those moments, I think we're really modeling, what it looks like to be human and also to be honoring to God in those moments where, like we don't just cover it over or act like it's nothing, but we show what it looks like to be sorry and to approach the people that we have hurt properly and seek that forgiveness. And so I've realized over the years, even my weaknesses are used as, teaching moments and powerful lessons for my children. And, I'd like more of those teaching moments to come, not from my weak moments, but, like they work too.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So what do you think of as your favorite mothering story?
My favorite story, not too far in the past, is probably last year. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I think it was last year. My kids and I were driving, and it was during rush hour. It was really, really busy. It was pouring down rain, but they noticed a homeless man walking in the rain with no umbrella, no shoes, and they were it really struck them. So they said, "Mom, there's a man over there. He has no shoes on. He's walking in the rain." So, of course, God gave me that in that moment, the desire to turn around and try and do something. So I said, okay, well, let's go help him. So we, in traffic, which took me probably a good solid five minutes to turn around, we did. We turned around and got back over to where he was, and he managed to find a bus stop that had glass, overhang, so he could sit in there and not be in the rain. So we pulled up behind him, and without hesitation, my oldest daughter, she jumped out of the car with an umbrella, and then before she could get all the way out the door, I said, "Here, honey, give him this money so he can buy some shoes." And so she grabbed the money, grabbed the umbrella, went over to him, and without fear just gave this man the umbrella and, said, "We just wanted to bless you. God told us to stop and give you this." And so she did, and then we got back in the car, and we were driving away, and the rain stopped, and out, there's clouds up in front of us, and Joshua, I think it was, he said, "Mom, look." He said, "Looks like the cloud is a big smiley face." So I said, "Well, see, maybe, I said, that's just God's way of showing you that he's extremely happy that you stopped and you helped and you showed love to a stranger." And so that was probably one of my most favorite moments is when they all, saw a need and we were able to go and do a little bit of something, and then they had that and they were just so happy. It was just a really, really cool moment.
Yeah, that's really special. So what do you do for self-care to make time or take time for yourself?
Well, recently, I started, because the kids started going to Taekwondo. They were going for a couple weeks and they were enjoying it. And I thought, well, goodness, I'm spending so much time here with them, I might as well join in. So I did, and it's been a huge, I don't even know how to describe, just a huge blessing, because not only is it a physical exercise, and I feel so much better when I'm doing it, but it's, I've met a lot of parents and other people and forming relationships with them. So, kind of stepping out of my comfort zone and doing something that, initially was to just spend time with my kids became something for me. And so it's been so wonderful to do that. And now, I'm training with Matthew to go to that tournament, which I thought I would never do, but it's something I have a goal towards doing, and so that's kind of nice to have something that's my own and something that I can look forward to. And so in that training too, I've been doing kickboxing, so that's really intense exercise. So that's been really helpful. But I also try to go out like once a month or even once a week. It just depends on how crazy my month is. But I try to go out by myself, and I might go out and just even go eat by myself one meal, or, just go out to a park or go out, just go walk around the mall, or just something where I don't have the mommy every, all the time, and just get a little break for myself. And that's been really, really good to be able to hear my own thoughts and to kind of get away. And then I just try to one day a month, and this is, one day a month. So not very often, but one day a month, I really just kind of don't do anything in the house. I don't worry about doing any cleaning, nothing. And because my kids are older, I think I can do this. I think if I had little kids, I couldn't do it. But because they are older, I actually just take one day and I don't do anything. And I give myself permission not to worry about the house, not to worry about, meals. I know there's food in the house, and the kids, if they come and say, Mom, what can we have for dinner? I said, well, what would you guys like to have? What would you like to make? And so I let them do it. And so I try to do that once a month, and that kind of gives the kid, a chance to be in control, I guess. But it gives me a break, and I really need that because my husband travels so much, so he's not here most of the time. We go about 2 months at a stretch where he's not home, and then he'll come home for about 4 or 5, 6 days, and then he goes back, and so it's really difficult.
Yeah, that's hard.
It's almost like being a single parent, you know, so I have to really try to give myself a break and not feel guilty about that, so I try to do that at least once a month where I'm doing absolutely nothing, and it's okay. So I also try to rest as much as I can just because I'm going all day long.
Right.
So I try to get into bed as soon as I can. But some days, I don't know if other moms can relate, but there are some days where even though I've been going all day and I need to rest, it seems like I'll get into bed and then that's when my mind starts going. I think, oh, what can I do now? The kids are all in bed. And so some days that doesn't work out. I end up doing a lot more and I don't get to bed so early, and then I feel, it's kind of hard the next day. So I'm trying to be better about going to bed early and getting rest. But those are a couple of things that I try to do. So
yeah, no, that's good. The intention of that question really is for people to share their ideas to hopefully prompt people to make time for themselves, and B, to give, just a whole slew of ideas of what categorizes as taking time for yourself. It doesn't have to be like a set thing. And my hope is that by people expressing what they do, that other people may have ideas on, what they could do. And
that's great.
And so that's why I've enjoyed listening to what other people do for self-care. And it's been a large variety, and that's been fun too.
Awesome.
All right. So what would you give as a word of encouragement or a piece of advice to that weary mom out there?
Well, I have a couple of things I wrote down. I would say just see your kids as gifts. I know as moms, and we're day to day, and so we always are on. I mean, that's our job, and that's what we do. But to remind yourself and always see them as the gifts that they are. They came from God, and so if we see the source of where those children have come from, even when our kids are, acting up, and they're just really, really hard to deal with sometimes. We have to remember who gave them to us. And so if we can keep that kind of at the forefront of our mind, dealing with things like that, becomes a ministry. And then just to remind ourselves how much we have to be thankful for. I think that I know I have a friend who writes down in her journal every day just one thing that she's thankful for during the day. And I think that's so awesome to do. So I would encourage moms to do that, just to write down things that you have to be thankful for, so that when you have those really, really rough days, and maybe lay it next to your bed and you can pull it out and look at the things that you're thankful for. But I have a sign up in my bathroom that I look at all the time, and I love it. It says, love, laugh, and live. And I think that, as moms, because the day-to-day stuff can be so mundane sometimes and can kind of be a drudge at times, that we just remember we need to laugh with our kids and our families and love them as much as we can, and live the best that we can with the opportunities that God gives us. And most importantly, I think, is to rest as much as possible as we can as moms. To get rest so that we can be refueled to be what we need to be for our families and for our kids.
Good advice. Well, thank you, Jenna, for being willing to share your mothering story with us today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share it.
You're welcome. Well, you take care and have a nice day.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on the No Mom is an Island podcast. We hope that it was an encouragement to you wherever you are in your mothering journey. If you would like to share your story or would like to see something added to our interviews, please contact us at nomomisanisland@gmail.com or send us a message on Facebook or Instagram. Summer is here. Are you looking for some good things to read for you or for your children? Check the episode description below for some recommendations. If you have enjoyed listening to the stories of other moms, there are a few ways you can help this podcast continue. One thing you can do is to share the episodes with family and friends on social media. Another thing you can do that will really help boost the podcast's visibility is to leave a rating on Podbean or iTunes or whatever platform you use to listen to this podcast. Most of those platforms require a certain number of reviews before they will publish them. It helps the podcast get higher rankings so that other people can see it when they are looking for something to listen to. If you could help the podcast in that way, it would be greatly appreciated. Another thing you can do is you can consider contributing to the monthly expenses of hosting this podcast by going to the crowdfunding link in the episode description. Thank you.